Hello, everybody. So I'm downstairs in our basement, and our wood stove is down here. I'm just getting the computer logged in so I can see your guys' comments. Anyway, I was down here putting some wood in the fire just now, like right before I got to you guys, and I burned my arm. Oh, classic Aaron. Anyway, how are you guys doing? There are a ton of comments. I can't even keep up with them all. Oh my goodness. I see we have Sharon in here, and Kathy, and Daz, and Tony and Joni. Scott's here, Linda. Hey guys, did I miss anybody? Is that everybody? Marshall's in here. So many people. So nice to see you guys. Happy Wednesday. I know it's going to be Thanksgiving in the States, and of course we're in Canada. Yeah, the burn hurts. It's like it's not friendly. Serves me right. I was in a hurry. We're in Canada, as you well know, and so we do our Thanksgiving in October. So that's long gone, but happy Thanksgiving to all our friends in the States, and hope you eat lots of delicious food and enjoy your family and friends, and that you're all doing well. You guys know a lot of people have talked to us about the flooding in British Columbia, and I know that Tony and Joni are getting some of that in Nova Scotia and the Atlantic provinces of Canada. We have been very lucky not to be affected by this at all. We're very safe. Nothing is flooded in our region. But there's a lot of devastation in our province right now. And so, grocery stores have been not stocked at all. They finally, the other day, I was able to get some I got strawberries, bananas, and a thing of lettuce. And I said to Daniel, I feel like I'm like a rich, privileged person who is able to get, fruit and vegetables. It was just something that you're so used to being able to get, and then you can't for like a week or two. And when you can, you just feel like you're the luckiest person in the world for kind of normal everyday things. I felt so wealthy. So it just really makes you realize how much we do have on a day-to-day basis, and how just horrifying it is for everybody who's been affected by this. So our thoughts go out to anybody who might be watching. I know Marshall's affected. Marshall, are you still in Kamloops with your friends? I've been thinking hard about Marshall. He's been displaced by this. So there's just a lot of people. So yeah, definitely wanted to say there's a lot of things to be thankful for this year, even though it's not Thanksgiving in Canada right now. It's always a good time to be thankful. So Dan is doing good. Thank you, Marshall. So Dan's arm is healing, and he got his pins out a couple weeks ago, and he returned to work a couple days ago for the first time. So it's really, really exciting time. So we're starting to get back to normal, but it's hard to be on one income. I know that a lot of you know that, and struggle with that too. And again, just things to be thankful for. So anyway, without further ado, we have the most wonderful guest tonight. We have Anita from Flowerfolk Farm, and she is, as you know, in Australia, and she's just a lovely friend to a lot of us here in YouTube land. And so we're so excited to welcome you, Anita, to our channel.
Hello. Oh, thanks for having me. You're making me blush.
Well, I think that when I came across your channel, I think it was back in the spring, I was looking back at your videos today and seeing kind of where I started watching you, and you've just been like, how you have certain people that you're always kind of excited to see when they have new stuff, or I don't know, you just smile when they comment or something. You're one of those people for us. So
I'm so glad. Yeah, I love your community too. I've been really enjoying it. It's been really good fun, actually.
Isn't it? There's so
Yeah,
many
yeah,
good
it's good.
people. I'm blocking my hand here. Sorry, I'm just turning up my volume on my phone. So
And
it's
hi everyone in the
Thursday.
chat. Hi everyone in the chat. I can see lots of people I know there. It's so lovely to see you. Thanks for coming along.
Yes, you have a lot of friends here. A lot of friends.
Oh, they're all pretty amazing people.
Yeah. So you're ahead of us. You're on Thursday. It's Thursday
Yeah,
at 1 o'clock, right?
yeah, I actually had to look it up because I have no idea with the time differences how it actually works. So
Yeah.
I looked it up and yeah, I was a day ahead of you. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're Australian Eastern Standard Time, yes? Is that what it's
yes,
called?
yeah. So Melbourne time, and that can change because we also have coming pretty soon. We have daylight savings, so we just scraped in to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still change in the spring and the fall, or like the winter and the summer, but of course the seasons are opposite of us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you guys are just, I'm seeing all the snow and everyone's plants are dying back and
Yeah.
ours are just sort of starting to come and
You're just getting
it's just
started.
bizarre. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about how Anita began. Like where did you grow up? What did you always kind of live on an acreage as a child? Were you in the city? Tell us a little bit about how things started for you.
Yeah, no, I didn't grow up in the country at all. I grew up in the city, but I had an aunt who actually had a little small acreage in the country, and it's actually not far from where I live now. And
Oh,
I used to go out there. Yeah, I used to go out there on school holidays and ride the horses and swim in the dam and do all the country kid stuff. So it was really, really, really good. A really good lifestyle. I think I just always had an affinity with the country. Um, but other than that, I really just grew up in the city and did normal city kid stuff. But my parents actually split up when I was quite young and we moved to a really interesting place, me and my mum and my brother. We ended up in the outback.
oh wow.
Out there, all the red dirties and the ghost gum trees. And we stayed for probably about a year up there with my grandparents who were missionaries at the time and they worked with Aboriginal people. And
Okay.
so yeah, it was awesome. And I had probably the best 12 months of my life, I think, just
Hmm.
being out in the wide open spaces, in the dirt. Just that sort of lifestyle was pretty good fun as a kid. Um, and so when we came back to my hometown, which is Geelong, which is about an hour from Melbourne for anyone who sort of knows geography, and then my little town, Maud, is about 30 minutes out of Geelong. So it's yeah, it's not far from Melbourne at all. So yeah, so I kind of grew up and then went to school and everything, but then got into floristry and hence I'm sort of doing a little bit of that now with what I'm doing at the farm. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of found myself I actually went back to study and did some social work stuff and ended up working in the correctional area. Working,
Area, region.
yeah, I worked in the adult prison system for a little while, and then went into juvenile prison system for a little bit too. And then I
Wow.
started a family, so yeah, that pretty much got me prepared for family and kids.
You have done it all. You have done it all. So how old were you then? You said like as you were growing up, when did you get interested in flowers and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've probably always been well, arty, I guess.
Yeah.
I've always loved craft. I've always really enjoyed that side of things, and decided to. I did a floral artistry sort of course,
Okay.
and then was worked in that area for a few years, and then decided to get into social work. But it really just evolved from me loving working with flowers. And even at a very young age, I gardened. So I did a lot of gardening and planting and stuff like that. So.
And would have that been more even at your grandparents' house, or you had a little ability in the city to do that, or?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So my grandparents, who we lived with up in Mount Isa, in the mining town out in the outback, they were big gardeners, and so was my mum. So they were big influences on me growing veggies and things like that growing up. And yeah, and my
They
pop
taught
right.
you the tricks of the trade.
Yeah, they did. They did, and see, my grandparents really grew up in that era where they were still producing their own chickens. Like, they would still go out and on a Sunday morning, chop the chook's head off, prep it for a roast, and then put it in the oven, go to church and come home, and that was lunch,
Yeah. So
So
really into the self-sustainability.
yeah, they really
Yeah.
had to be back then. They were not wealthy, and to have meat was a pretty special luxury, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So did you see that then, and even at an early age kind of say, hey, there's something to this, like being responsible for your own food?
Definitely, definitely. And I think once you have children, I think it takes on a whole nother level again.
Yeah.
And I think, I've always, because I've always really enjoyed gardening and things like that, I've had a real interest in food and, growing my own food and producing my own food wherever possible. Um, and that really influenced some of the decisions I made around what I brought and what I didn't, and what I grew and what I didn't. And I actually ended up going back to study again, and I've done just fairly recently another degree in public health and specialised in local and global food environments. So that kind of that took it up a notch as well, because when you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
It became a real issue for me around how we're producing food, and then from there it sort of became not just I'm doing it for my own health, but I really want to raise awareness wherever I possibly can, and encourage people wherever I can to think beyond just going to the supermarket,
Mm-hmm.
to start to think about, where does our food actually come from? How is it produced? Could we be
Mm-hmm.
doing it better, um, in a more sustainable way, but also in a way that has better impacts for our health as well? So,
Mm-hmm. I want to get into that a lot, and look at that deeper here shortly, because I think that that's really interesting. Um,
mm,
before we get to that kind of chronologically, you have a social work background.
mm,
What was the interest there that you wanted to get into that initially?
probably working with people. And probably also it was my upbringing, because I'd grown up with grandparents and my mum, who were all very socially justice kind of. They had those leanings. I really felt, and my faith too, really made me think, there's a lot of people out there who are really struggling and hurting, and how could I contribute something to that? Um, but yeah, just I really enjoyed working with people, and yeah, nothing sort of put me off, not even the jail stuff. And
Yeah, clearly. Well, and of course, social work is such a diverse career.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
social work within a hospital setting that, of course, I'm quite familiar with. And then there's, social work in community and addictions and all this stuff. What led you to, and I don't, I know that, a lot of this stuff, I don't mean the confidential stuff, but what led you into the correctional system? Because
well,
that's a
actually,
very unique environment, and
yeah,
not a lot
it
of
is.
people would relate to that. So share a little bit about that process.
Well, I actually met a girl, because I did some counselling training as well. So I started doing counselling training, and at one of those counselling courses that I did, I bumped into this girl who actually worked at for a correctional centre, and she said they were looking for volunteers to help with paperwork. So I did start out. I got involved in that area first and just did some voluntary work, and then a position became available, and I applied for it and was successful in getting it. So,
and were you nervous? Were you excited? Like that's a
um, yeah, I was looking forward to the role. I never felt scared or anxious or nervous or anything like that. It's hard to explain. I think it wasn't ever. It was just a really good environment to work in. That there was a lot of opportunity to work with great people, but it was a really good learning environment as well. And it had its challenges, no doubt about it, and it had a few scary moments here and there. But I think what it did for me was it built resilience. I learnt a lot of things along the way that helped me develop a better understanding of people and people's backgrounds, and that people don't just end up in the prison system. There's reasons for that.
Right. They have a story.
And a story, and I love stories. So for me, it was always great to connect with people at that level, and to see them as people, and I think often that's all it really takes to be able to connect with someone and bring out the best in them.
Yeah.
So so for me, it was a real joy to be able to do that. I also had to be the bad guy at times, which taught me a lot, because I'm not. That's probably not by nature how I am, but there are times where you have to be the bad guy, and how you conduct yourself and how you be the bad guy, I think says a lot about you as a human.
Yes.
You can set boundaries respectfully, and I think that taught me a lot, even for being a parent, when you've got to set boundaries with your own kids.
Absolutely. You have to be firm, but you also have to show that you care. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sure that was like the best life lesson place possible for that.
I learnt a lot. Those years were really, I think, instrumental for setting me up in my values, in moving beyond stigmas and judgments of people, I think. And probably more than I realised at the time. But
Yeah. I can relate to that in the sense that in the hospital, of course, we see a lot of people who have made choices along the way, or are as a result of not their choices, you know what I mean? But they're there, and you're responsible to offer them, impeccable care. And sometimes they're unwilling patients, or uncooperative, or suffering from mental health considerations that don't allow them to be competent in their care. And it's your job to see the person and not the to see the story, right? And it's always interesting getting to know some of those people, and a lot of them, well, I mean, of course all of them are normal, that's not, of course, but people who don't have access to that type of environment don't don't realize that they have moms and dads and brothers and sisters and lives and memories and joys and favorite foods and all of it. And they're not just a incarcerated person, or a person suffering from addictions or whatever. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this this type of live on our channel. Was we all watch each other's videos, and we know a certain degree about people. Some people let us in more than others on their channel, you know what I mean? But to really showcase the person behind the channel and get to know them a little bit more, I just love that. It's just such a deeper connection.
It's really cool. And because in your videos, like, I don't know about other people, I'm not really following the chat. Sorry, I probably should be. Sorry about that,
They're
people.
mostly chatting amongst themselves. There's been a couple things
Okay,
addressed, but
okay,
I'm
cool.
keeping an eye on it.
I'm sorry if I'm missing.
We're
I'm
gonna
sorry
give you
if I'm
guys a
missing.
chance to answer questions in the chat. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I'm keeping an eye out too.
Thanks,
But
Erin.
yeah.
Keep me in check. Yeah, I definitely think that, and I think like I mean, I never thought I would ever get on, like I would ever have a YouTube channel. It's so not me. Like
Yeah.
seriously, if you knew what I'm like, I'm very personal and private. But I think I had a lot of encouragement from Kathy from Little Garden Big Dreams because
Yes, Kathy's
she
here
was,
with us.
yeah, but she really was very instrumental in encouraging me to do it and to share and empower basically. And that got me because I thought I can do it for that. I don't
Yeah.
want to really put myself on my stuff on show, but I can
Yeah.
do it if it means that it may just empower some other people with knowledge and things like that. But not that I know that much either. But having said that, I think, everyone brings something to the table. So,
Yeah.
but it's
Well, and
been great.
I preach it on my channel too. Just
Yeah.
people appreciate, and I appreciate genuine people. And we don't all know everything about everything, but we're all learning together. And I think people like if you are honest and don't know everything, because a lot of us don't.
Well, we really don't. And I think what I have loved about the YouTube community is that, I've loved learning myself. Like when I started in late August last year. So, and I started for Shed Wars. I don't know if anyone here has heard of the Shed Wars guys, but I started, which is a gardening collaboration worldwide. And so I started it for that, just to basically learn more about gardening stuff and interact with garden people. So that's how it all started for me. And then I sort of, as things have changed in my circumstances and I've moved into doing full-time stuff here at the farm, it's sort of become more around different things that I'm doing here as well. But when
Yeah.
I was at uni not long ago, I used to go to uni and say to my friends all the time, "Oh my gosh, the pigs got out last night. I was chasing 21 pigs around the neighbourhood in the dark, and they're black pigs, and I couldn't see them. And all of a sudden, I'd have one tear out in front of me and nearly take my legs out." And they're like, "How come you are not telling people this?" And I'm like, because I don't want people to know that my pigs get out.
Yes. Yes. That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh, Sharon says, and that you do, Anita. Just going back to and Kathy says, honesty and authenticity is everything. So they're agreeing, kind of that
Oh,
we,
Sharon's lovely too. She's got a fairly new channel as well. She does beautiful dahlias and garden stuff too. And
so
Kathy, of
everyone has
course.
to go check out Sharon. That's
Yeah,
just me in the
she's that.
garden.
Yeah, there's heaps of. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you everyone for popping on. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So you have a 3-acre piece of land. At what point in time did you move there, and how did you, was that family land? Did you purchase that? How did you come across this, and what made you want to make it home?
Yeah, well, this is where, so we had already had, so me and my husband have got 3 children. My eldest, Isabella, is 20, and my next child is Archer, and he's 19. And then we had a bit of a gap, and so I already had 2 children, and then I fell pregnant again. And at that point, we decided we just wanted to get out to the country. So, and just have the space, have the country lifestyle, and be able to grow a bit more food, and hopefully get some animals as well, and maybe do our own meat. So we moved out here almost 14 years ago when I was pregnant with our 3rd child, Harry, and when we moved here, this house is, it's about 115 years old. And
Wow,
yeah, it's one of the,
115.
yeah, It's one of the first homes in the area that was and owned by the main people that settled this area. And so originally it was a huge parcel of land, like thousands of acres, but it's
Mm.
been subdivided, and at some point we've just ended up with the original house and 3 acres around it. So when we moved here, it had been semi-renovated, and by semi I mean it was very only just renovated. And so we ended up doing a renovation and an extension, and I've just gradually built the gardens up around the house, which is about an acre around the house we've got of gardens, and that's now what I use for my roses. That's where a lot of my heirloom variety roses are, around the house.
Yes.
And yeah, and then we've sort of built out of there, we've built the pig area, a huge veggie patch out the area that was our original one. And now we've built the really huge veggie area, which is out to the side and also has all the flower beds as part of the flower business. So,
And you
yeah.
have such a beautiful property. I remember the video when you were first, I think it might have been on your intro video, actually, your first video, when you were showing
Oh,
everybody the new rose area and everything was, quite petite still, and
yeah,
how
yeah.
things have changed. So
It is
people who might
not
not
even
be
the
familiar
same.
with you, you you actually, so you quit your job and you
Mm,
decided that you were going to do this full time. Talk a little bit
mm.
about that. So you've already kind of let us know you've kind of felt this calling. You tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when I finished uni, which was almost 4 years ago now, I came out and sort of knew that I wanted to work in sort of more grassroots areas of around food education and food security. So I was really blessed to be able to get a role within the neighbourhood house sector, and I worked as a food security project worker for 3 years there, and that was a really great spot for me to, I guess, trial a few things. When you're fresh out of uni and you've got all these great ideas and you're fresh and you're keen, but whether that actually works in the real world and
Right.
what the need is, and all that
And
sort of stuff.
you have quite a bit of education because you have a public health degree and you have a bachelor's in um or what
Local and global food environments. Yeah,
right, right. So what were
yeah.
those, of course we know by name what they would discuss, but what were the things took out of those programs that you really found spoke to you that kind of have led you to where you are?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Erin, because I think that is instrumental in how I came to this place. And I worked in a really so what I did was I set up programs that enabled people to be able to access food better. So that looks very different in different settings. So I was in a
Right.
really poor area, very low socioeconomic area where there was a lot of public housing.
Okay.
So most people didn't own their properties. They were restricted. They couldn't really, like, I was just really gung ho about, okay, how can we educate people to grow their own food, to build food resilience? Because we know that once people know, it's like that story, you give a man a fish for one day and you'll feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish and teach him how to do all those things, you'll feed him for a lifetime. So I was straight away thinking, yeah, we'll do all that. It'll be great. But you're dealing with generational poverty and generational issues that just the last thing they want to think about is growing their own food when they can't even put a meal on the table.
Right.
So with it, I think whenever you go into what I've learned is before you go into a situation like that, it's really important to look at um, what's the urgent need? And it was food security. So, of course, I ran a food bank but also then, as well as that, I also started to build these other programs up around it. So there was initially food security, but then we have the other things come into place over time. And as people could actually access food regularly from the centre, they then were able to think about, okay, well, maybe I could start to plant some lettuce or tomatoes this season. And then I ran some programs that were free and funded by different organisations that would pay for all the materials so that these people could have a setup and take that home with them. And, you know, also things around education around food. So not just growing the food, but then knowing how to use it and cook a nutritional meal from that. So it's quite multi-layered when you start to look at food security and food resilience in communities. For you and I and most people, we just take it for granted that we can put food on the table. Some people just can't. And
Right.
and particularly the last 2 years, that's, you know, we've really seen a lot of that.
Yes, it's exacerbated a lot. We do have a question here. It kind of is a little bit different than what you're talking about at this time, but Celtic Roots Farm says many people want to do homesteading full time. However, there are many things that prevent them from doing that. Money, typically. How is what you are doing sustainable?
That's a really good question, because that was the biggest decision I had to make in doing what I did. My husband has a full-time job, and we, behind the scenes, so for about a year before I actually finished up working in my job, we started to set things up with income streams. So I started doing eggs, and then I started to we started to do other things here at the farm that were building up to us actually me being able to leave work, because I couldn't leave financially until I had some sort of income stream happening. And then what happened for us here in Australia, and Victoria in particular, we kept getting put into lockdown over and over and over. I cannot tell you how many weeks or months we spent in lockdown. And I was working from home, and all the programs that I had actually set up to try and stabilise food security for the area where I was working, we couldn't even run them in the end. It was becoming clearer that there was a need to be able to do this outside of the work zone where I was. And so with my qualifications I always was hoping to get into freelance work. Now that's hard to do and have a secure income.
Right.
And so I do have on the side, every now and then I fill in for a friend who does some radio work, and I just fill in and do the odd job, and that just gives me a little bit of a cash input. But not only that, I've now moved in. I was planning on running workshops from the farm here, which is around food and sustainability and paddock to plate stuff. But because of all the lockdowns, I haven't been able to roll any of that out, and I still can't.
Yeah.
Because now we've got this issue of mandated vaccinations, and it's very murky waters. And as a small business now, I can't. Yeah, there's a lot of risk going on there. So that's how I got into flowers. I didn't plan on it.
It didn't. Lisa, you relax, Lisa. Lisa just got on from work, and you relax, Lisa. This is supposed to be an enjoyable, like, non-moderated chat. Everyone. Yes, this was Lisa's last day of work, everybody. Yogi Hollow Farm. We have a lot of people
done what I did.
yeah, she is absolutely. Well, and it's interesting what you said, because I think there's people who had dreams of maybe being self-sustainable before this, and then haven't been able to do it in the way they've wanted to, or timing or logistics because of the pandemic. And then there's a lot of people who never thought about it before, who are now
Yeah.
thinking about it. So it's very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
Tony and
I think,
Joni at Maple Mill Acres say having a sustainable income is so important on a homestead. It's difficult
yeah,
enough as it is. We try to make a little here and there. You know, for us,
yeah,
we are still employed, but each year I try to do something else to add that will be a different stream. So, you know, we do eggs and we make pretty, we actually do pretty good on that. And then we breed and sell cattle.
yeah,
Um, and then we're getting the baby doll sheep in the spring. And that's
yeah,
from registered bloodlines. And I'm really hoping to get quite heavy into the sheep and make that a third stream. And then we do the meat birds. We sell, sustainable, ethically sourced, free range pasture raised chicken. Well, actually, I can't say that those are free range because we do keep them in a tractor and stuff at night. But nevertheless, so we have meat
mm,
birds and, just all these things to try to get us to the point where, even if we don't stop working, although I think we might have to one day because it's starting to get to be a big operation now. But just even for food sustainability for ourselves. So I talked a little bit at the onset of how we particularly have had food disruptions here due to the flooding. And that's not due to, supply and demand, but it's due to key critical infrastructure was wiped out in flooding. And so we
mm,
had all 5 major highways that fed our region were washed out. And so there was no
mm.
food coming in. And so the grocery stores were bare because there was no way for the trucks or rail or anything to come. And
And that has a knock-on effect to you guys being able to
absolutely.
access food. And we're seeing that. We've just found out here that and this is where the global environment comes into it. It's not just here in Australia that we're dealing with stuff. It's worldwide, and we have primary producers over in your area producing loads of food that we import, and
Mm-hmm.
we're now seeing that the price increase on food is
Mm.
just they apparently that's going to increase up to 6%, which you don't
Mm-hmm.
think is very much, but you add that on week after week, and
Yep.
then possible shortages because of floods or, reduced workforce because they're sick or you're
Yep.
in lockdowns, things like that. The knock on effect does impact people, and the first people to get impacted are the poor people.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
it's always the lowest socioeconomic people that are hit the hardest. And
Absolutely.
um, and it's really rough. It's not fair, but it's just how it happens. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, and so that actually is a perfect segue to talk about kind of some of the things you're doing with the foundation, with kind of your foundation and the work that you're doing. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And just to wrap up with what that uh, who said something about it's not easy to like not have an income and stuff. It really you really I think what you need to do is have a very good plan of how you can ease out of work and into earning an income on the farm. You can't just snap and do it. You have to
Yeah.
have a plan. You have to be reasonable. You have to have something in place and build towards that. And have some sort of way of earning that income. But if my husband didn't work, I couldn't do what I'm doing. I would have to
Yeah.
still be working. So if you've got a couple of you and if you've got a couple and one can work and the other can sort of, I mean, I'm not going to lie, we've had to pull in the purse strings big time.
Yeah.
But I was prepared to, and we were prepared to do that to build the business. And it meant that I had the time then to put into the business. So you've got to weigh up,
Yeah.
you've got to weigh all that up and plan it and work out what's best for you and your situation. I mean, homesteading is not easy. It's
No,
a commitment. I think it's a lifestyle and a commitment, and you've got to have passion for it.
I
It's the most
agree.
rewarding thing you will ever do, but
Yeah.
it takes
You have
guts.
to know what you're getting into. Like you
Yeah,
can't just decide one day you're going to do it because
no.
I mean, it's hard work.
Yeah,
It's not a lot of like for the amount of work that you put in, you don't necessarily get it back out. You know what I mean? Like
Correct.
all the, I mean,
Mm.
we don't have, you know, as I just said, like we're both still working. You know, we have such a big operation. People say to me at work, how can you do it all? And I say, I don't know, you know? So you have to be prepared that it's not just something that you go out and do a couple hours of chores in the day and then you have some free time, or, you know, you're fixing
Honestly,
fences, you're
I
doing
work.
vet work, you're doing, you know,
Oh,
feeding and vegetable gardens and all this stuff that you're also doing. And it's, you have to want to do it. And then you have to be able to do a lot of unromantic jobs that are difficult and hard, and you're tired, and the calf,
and
you know, needs pulling out, and it's midnight and you're having to pull out a calf and there ain't no vet coming because you live in the boonies. Like you gotta be prepared. Yeah.
well, yeah, and it really is, and you know, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I've worked harder since I finished my paid job than I ever did when I was working. You know, and that's saying something because my job was pretty busy. But you know, this is the rewarding work that, you know, if you're passionate about it, it's not just about the money. Um, it's about building the community around you as well, but
Yeah.
building up something, a legacy that is something you're passionate about. And you know, someone actually said in the comments then, I just caught it, that they've had to be inventive. And I have
Yes.
to tell you, that has been the biggest thing I have learnt this year is I have had to be inventive, which is why I've started doing flowers full time and growing them at the rate I'm growing them, because I can't run workshops, which is what the plan was. Um, and we would have been able to sustainably have a good income coming in, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
So what else can I do? I can grow flowers because I'm a florist. I used
Yeah.
to be a
You have had
florist.
to
So
adapt.
you have to adapt. You have to be resilient. You have to be prepared to be fluid and work with what you've got, what money you've got, what seasons you've got. You've got
Yeah.
to be really smart and plan well, and you can make it
And then
work.
have a plan B if all of that doesn't work.
Oh, because that happens too.
That
Um,
happens too. Lisa says I have to come help her farrow next year. She knows I'm an expert at pulling animals out now. Um, so tell us what you're doing then.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I got really heavily involved in a movement called Grow Free, which I guess stems from my passion around working around food and justice and seeing all people be able to access healthy, nutritious food. Um, and so I got on board with Grow Free, which is a gardening and food movement that is really just about opening up sharing carts at various different places, and it just comes from your excess produce going out onto the cart, and it's a sharing type scenario where you give what you can and take what you need. And
I love
I
it.
said, yeah, it's awesome. It's just one of the best movements I've ever seen. Um, it just really got under my skin, I guess, because it tackled the issue of food security, but also, you know, making food free so that it was accessible for everyone. And it
Yeah.
comes from a place of
And
community.
fresh and like,
Yes, I
yeah,
know. And it involves community. So, you know, everything about it is just, yeah,
everything is
building.
you. It's
It is.
everything like that you're interested in. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It was so bizarre. I couldn't believe it when I came across it. I'm like, how have I not heard about this before? Anyway,
Yes.
so I started a cart out the front of our house, and I'm thinking, I don't even think this is going to work because who's going to drive out here? But I have about half a dozen mailboxes out the front of my house because it's like a mail drop point. And
Sure.
I thought, oh, look, worst case scenario, someone who comes to get their mail might take a bunch of spinach or something like that, you know. But honestly, it went nuts. Like, I couldn't believe it. People were just wanting that old fashioned thing of being able to share. And I couldn't believe how many people in my area actually grow their own food.
Mm.
And And I just didn't think that they would, but they do. And so I had people dropping off jams, eggs,
Hmm.
all sorts of food, and it just took off. And I would never have expected that,
So
seriously,
is it
because
a
we're,
trade like thing? Like you take a spinach and you leave a jam, or can you just take a spinach and not, like, how does it work? Like you explained it,
so
but
yeah, it's literally, if you have something to swap, you can, but if you can't, there's no
then don't worry about
expectation.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have
Um,
probably gotten to meet so many people that you didn't even know were around locally and get to like collaborate.
Yeah, it's been so cool, and I have people stopping off at the gate all the time, and and just striking up a conversation, and they say, "Oh, well, I'll bring some lemons next week," and they do. And
Yeah.
I have had people leave money. I will be honest with you, because I think they feel bad that they can't leave anything. And so what I started to do with that money is just put it towards potting mix, because
Mm-hmm.
what we actually do is every spring we do a huge seed planting, and Kathy comes and helps me with this. We get a few volunteers together and we plant out seedlings and we give them away from the
Mm.
cart.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
whole idea is to equip people to be able to grow their own food as well.
Love it.
So we do heaps and heaps and heaps of seeds, and then I go and give them away to a whole lot of other people as well. And so I've started putting the money aside for that. And then last year, 12 months ago, I hit a point where everyone was in lockdown. It was pretty. There was a lot of negativity, so we needed something positive in our world at that time. And so I just I just had this idea. We've got a whole big front paddock, about an acre down the front of our property, right next to the cart, doing nothing, absolutely nothing. I just had to mow it over and over and over. So I thought, what about if we turn that into like a growing space, a community growing space, and we actually grow stuff a little bit more hardcore, and we actually start to produce a little bit extra that we can then donate and use in food aid charities. And so, yeah, I just sort of thought, oh yeah, we'll do it. Let's do it. And I put a little thing on social media, and I thought we probably need a shed, and we probably need a water tank to catch water, and we probably need some mulch and a couple of other little things. That's all. That's all we need really to get started. I'm happy for people to use the land. Um, and so we crowd fundraised it, and we did it. I could not believe it. In 2 days, we had
Wow.
we had all the money we needed just to buy all the equipment and get
That's
started.
incredible. What a
So that
testament to how people think that this is so important.
I would never have considered that people were as passionate about it as me, but
We have a lot of comments that are saying the same thing, like,
yeah,
saying that people are, transitioning more into the older ways. There's a resurgence of that right now.
yes,
The pandemic, people have been struggling to connect with people, and this initiative would help with that. There's just a lot of people are agreeing with it. That's
mm,
resonating with people in the chat too.
yeah, and that's exactly right. I think what the beauty is about Grow Free is that it brings community together for a united purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about buying things, or it's about sharing. And it's actually
Mm-hmm.
sharing. It feels good, and it feels old fashioned like it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I think that really resonates with people. And the whole community garden thing that we set up with the community's help is really designed to go to the next level and create a space where people feel safe to come and grow food, learn. So we run workshops when we can, seed planting workshops where they can learn how to grow food. They
Incredible.
can come and weed. If they want to just come and do some weeding for mental health, man, just
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah. Please come on
um,
over.
yeah, and we've got a dedicated group of volunteers. Kathy's one of them, and they come and help plant in it, and we do a whole lot of stuff there. So last season we donated a heap of stuff to a local food charity, and we
Mm-hmm.
kept the cart really well stocked as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think, building community and building that food resilience back into community is just so basic and so
Mm-hmm.
needed right now. And it really taps into, I think, that whole good old fashioned value of being there for each other.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we've learnt that more than ever over the last couple of years, that that's what we need, is each other.
Yeah.
And self-sufficiency isn't about the self. It's, you can't be self-sufficient without your community. So
Yeah.
that for me has been, yeah, probably one of the most rewarding things we've been able to be a part of. So yeah,
Yeah. 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 Tony and Joni were saying that
bartering. Yeah, we
yeah,
do a
they've
lot of
been doing bartering, and that's
yeah,
also a great feeling of community and connection. They've been doing a lot of that.
yeah.
It's been amazing for them. And then Kathy's saying that you guys have so much fun on your working bee days and you laugh a lot. That's the
We
thing
do.
is I tell Daniel sometimes that I think that I was born into the wrong era. I hate traffic and I hate the city and I never want to leave my house, and I enjoy well, I enjoy just things that are real and honest and genuine and true and hard work, and you know things that we've had to do, like that mucking out the spring tank that I did. That was such hard work. We were sore for days, and I said to Daniel, I'd rather do this than anything. And
Yeah.
then talking about the community and bartering and stuff, we sold one of our cows this spring,
Mm,
and the people that we sold to, we really wanted to sell her to because they just declared themselves as just lovely people. And she
mm,
said, I don't have enough money to pay you for the cow. I have X amount of cash, but would you take the rest in hay? And I was like, yes. So we got like half of our required hay from these
mm.
people, and then some cash, and they got a cow. And it's just, I mean, that in some ways was better than cash, because, and they came, and
Yeah.
now we're actually really good friends, and they just had a baby, and we've stayed connected, and it's a connection that we normally never would have made.
Yeah.
You sell a cow, you drop the cow off, that's the end of it. But a
Mm,
relationship was formed as a result of working together to do
mm,
something mutually beneficial. Now, that's not food, but it's just farming and sustainability and homestead. And I think people,
mm.
you know, especially with some of the things that we're seeing, and I don't want to get into politics at all, but I'm just saying politically in the world, it leaves you with a kind of a sour taste in your mouth. And so people are wanting to find those feel good moments and connections with people again, because they're seeing all this like disrespect and flippancy and arrogance and egotism and all this stuff, and people just want to like be loved and go back to basics,
And
and
it's
that's what
so much
this
more simple.
lifestyle affords, I feel like.
Yeah, it's much more simplistic in many ways. In other ways, it's not. But it is so much more simplistic when you know that even if you don't have the cash, you can swap for something. That is food security as well, because it means that you've got something that someone else needs, and
Yeah.
you can provide for each other. And that's why your community is so important. And
Yeah.
if everything else goes bust, you've got something that you can fall back on.
Yeah.
And this is why the skill of being able to grow your own food, produce your own food, and be inventive and
Yeah.
be creative, and all of those skills, they really serve you well in the homesteading community. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think the community aspect of it is everything, really.
Yeah. There's some comments here. People are agreeing, and then Tony says, I think part of the problem is the younger society that has been brought up on video games and TV, and there's no true reality of relationship to it, and now connection to each other is lost. Well, same thing as you actually. So there's a group of us that are, kind of friendly through YouTube. And there seems to be a common theme lately of, we were talking about how we want to be supportive to our YouTube friends and channels and things. And of course, what does YouTube support? Watching people's lives, watching people's movies, videos, that kind of thing. And we were saying that we want to do that, and we're going to continue to do that, but also not at the expense of our family, right? And not at the expense of our real life. And you just see people, you go to a doctor's office or on a bus or whatever, everybody is on their phone 100% of the time.
Yes.
And back in, whatever year, if you were waiting, there was, I think, more conversations had, because you would get to know people. People weren't sitting with their phone, and we try to raise our kids like that too, is, especially in the summer, in the winter too, but especially in the summer. My kids, they wake up, I feed them breakfast, and I kick them outside, and they know that they ain't coming inside till supper time. And I will serve them lunch outside. We have a picnic, and they ain't coming in, and we'll work or we'll do, or they can play, or I don't care what they do, but you aren't coming in till supper. And there's no, watching TV all day. And that teaches them as kids to be self-sufficient. And not self-sufficient, that's the wrong word, but like, you have to come up with, you have to have some initiative, right, to find things to do or to be involved in projects, or you're not just having something handed to you on a silver platter. And that says people need a lot of love and reassurance, even adults.
Yeah.
Lisa says, you're old school, Freddie, that's why we adore you.
Oh, hey, Freddie.
Oh dear. Glenn, it's Glenn's birthday today at the Cow Emporium. Happy birthday, Glenn.
Hello, Cow Emporium. I've loved watching little cow videos.
Yes. I still think
My dream
Go ahead,
is
sorry.
one day I would really love, we haven't got the fencing at the moment, but one day I would really love a Jersey house cow. And I just know that when that happens, I've got to be prepared for a lot of milk, a lot of butter, a lot of cream.
Yes.
So I'm not ready yet for that. I've got too much other stuff on the go.
Oh, you're going to love it. My Jersey isn't bred yet. Oh, she's a low-line cross, but she's the cutest ever.
Oh,
yeah. Annette has a ton of cute cows. A lot of people here have cows. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. There was one comment here. Oh, I'm getting behind on comments now. Anyway, I apologize, everybody. I'm reading your comments, and then they're
just retype them, maybe. If we've missed yours, maybe retype it so we don't miss out on you.
Yes, that's right. So as you enter into now your, kind of spring, summer season, what are your goals for, because you're out of lockdown now, presently, right? Yeah. So you've told us a little bit about how it's gone and different things. You're entering into a new season. What are you hoping maybe new or continued to accomplish this year?
Well, I am hoping, at the moment, I'm just hoping to build the flower side of things. So that's going really well. Who would have thought? But anyway, it's going really well. And like, I'm just taking consistent orders at the moment and doing things on, like doing pop-up shops and things like that on the weekend. And what I do at those pop-up shops is I sell, like, if I've got produce that's ready to go, it's different every week. So it's just very random, and it's whatever I have in the garden that's ready.
Right.
But I've got eggs and I've got some produce and flowers. And so I'm doing those. I would really like to, early next year, be able to do the paddock to plate workshops and start the education side of stuff happening, because every time I have visitors out here to the farm, they say, oh my gosh, you should be doing workshops and getting people out here. And I'm like, well, I'm trying.
So what would a workshop look like, ideally? Like, what would what would it look like?
So basically, it's an experience. So you come out here and you get a tour of all the animals, because we have a trillion. And then you get to, actually experience what it feels like to be in this environment. Because what we find is that when people start to experience it, a lot of their stress goes away. They start to just unwind and their eyes just open, and they start to really engage with what's going on around them. And then they start asking questions. Well, how could I do that? What do I need? And you know what? What we do here, you can actually do that in the suburbs. It's not, you can grow food, you can have an ecosystem, you can have some bees, you could have a couple of backyard chooks, you could do all that. It'll just be on a smaller scale. And
Right.
and then, you can work with your community to be able to make that a little bit extra. You grow
Right,
this,
Tony.
we'll grow that, and then we barter. So it's
Mm-hmm.
about planting seeds. It's an experience. You come out here, you learn a little bit about food and where your food comes from, and some of the things that are really important around food resilience and food security. And then we go out, pick some produce, come back in, cook it together, and then share a meal together. And
Love it.
people go away having had a taste of what could be, what
Mm-hmm.
is possible, and
They leave
hopefully,
inspired.
exactly, inspired to go and do what they can in the space they have, because you can. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's little things. It's just, it doesn't have to be huge. It could be
No.
just the tiniest little thing. It might be just growing lettuce
Yep.
in a pot, but it's something that you can do that
Right.
engages you
On
back
your
to your
balcony in
food.
Then
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And then you can be responsible for then instilling that in your children. And, then it becomes a real family thing. So there's a lot of stuff that comes out of that when people start to engage back into their food system. Uh, there's a lot of evidence, obviously, around that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it just goes back to what you were saying, like teach a man to fish, right? Just
yeah,
giving them
yeah,
first the inspiration and then some tools of
yeah,
how to do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you get the word out about these workshops? Are you pretty much all on social media, word of mouth, a little bit of both?
Mainly social media. So I use Instagram mostly,
Yeah.
and Facebook is sort of attached to that. YouTube is really just, I guess, highlighting what's happening on the farm. It's usually just, I try and make my YouTube content. It's sort of changed, because when I started, I was doing Shed Wars stuff, but now it's kind of gone into a whole lot more stuff around um, some of the scenery here on the farm, some of the scenery around where I live, the garden. I try and engage with people and bring them into a space where they go, oh, I would love to get back out in the garden. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping to achieve, is for people to say, I want to go garden as well. I want to get out and grow some things as well. So I'm hoping that in some small way, it kind of encourages people to do that. But mainly Instagram and Facebook, and YouTube is probably more, I guess, just showcasing some of the stuff we're doing at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's more
yeah.
like your documentation system.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're going to have, I mean, just a ton of people. And especially in your location where everyone's been locked down, there's going to be that much more of an incentive, if there wasn't already, to get
Mm.
out and participate in something like this, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think, Pete, you're right. What you were saying before about people just really getting back into this sort of stuff, like homesteading and growing your own food. I've never seen people gravitate towards it. Like, I mean, last year, I actually wanted to buy a few extra chickens, and everywhere was sold out, like completely sold out. All the plant sections in Bunnings and all the hardware stores completely sold out. Seeds, you could not get hold of seeds. It was incredible. It was really good, but I was like, oh man, I actually need some of that.
Yes. Yes. There's been a mad dash here every spring too, as you basically know that you have to get your seeds in like January,
Yeah,
because there won't be any when you actually want them. Such
yeah,
an
it's
interesting time.
interesting and really good. I'm really pleased that people recognise that this is a skill set that
Yes.
that you need in hard times. This is a
Yeah.
skill set you need, and how can we empower each other as a community to do that? Yeah, it's really important.
So tell us a little bit for people who don't know about the animals on your farm. You have a lot of animals, as you were saying. So if anybody's not familiar with your channel, tell us what you have.
Well, I've tried to set up an ecosystem so everything contributes something to, whether it's food or whether it's manure.
Lots of
Everything
manure.
contributes. Yeah, we need manure, lots of it. So, so we have pigs. Now, we did actually Berkshire pigs. They're an heirloom variety, and we've sort of been doing our own pork for about 5 years. So I had a breeding pair of Berkshires. And like I said, I had about 21 pigs here at one point.
That got out, that were black.
They got out and at night, of course. They don't get out during the day when you can see them.
No,
It's
never.
always at night. And we're there running around with the, head torches on, trying to find
Oh,
pigs. Yeah, so we have the pigs. We also have bees. Bees
yes, you
form.
do.
Yeah, so I've just caught my third swarm. So we've got 3 hives here at the moment, and I just keep building on it every year because I'm kind of a bee hoarder. Um, we also have quite a lot of chickens. We've got about 50 Isa Browns, and we've also got our livestock guardian dog, Sadie. She is she guards the whole property. So not even birds get on the property. She's pretty aggressive. Um,
I laughed in
and
your video when you said that that not only was she protecting, but she was keeping everything out of your garden. I
Oh, she
like that.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing because we have really big problems with cockies here. Like everyone thinks, oh, cockies are so nice, and
You're like,
they
no.
are,
Well,
but
what do
they're
they, so what do they do? What makes them bad?
well, they just come along. They've got these. They're like a parrot, so
Yeah.
they come along and they're not even interested in really eating the food. They just destroy it. So all my sunflowers that I had last year, beautiful big Russian giant Russians, they would just come along and just nip the whole head off, and the whole plant was gone. And
Ah,
they annihilate crops. Like they're so destructive. Um, so yeah, no birds, no mice. She's ruthless with mice. Like she'll dig a tunnel. You need a maremma.
well, we'll have to
um,
talk because I want some in with my lambs, but that's a whole other thing.
oh, perfect for lambs. Perfect for that sort of thing. We've we've managed to get a maremma. We did a fair bit of training with her very early on. From the moment we got her, we perimeter trained her so that she knows she does the whole 3 acres. She's not just in one area, she does the whole thing. But
Mm-hmm.
she goes between the house and the chickens really well. And I don't know how we managed to do that. It just happened because usually with maremmas, you train them with one flock. So, and then if you want to introduce new species into that flock, you can do that, but it takes a little bit of not major work, but just a little bit of work to get them used to the new person in the flock. But
Mm-hmm.
Sadie just does everything. She does the chickens, she does
Mm.
the garden. She'll come inside occasionally, she'll come inside and be a little house dog as well. She's incredible. I don't know how we managed to do that because, generally you do just train them to do one job, but she's
Right.
she's just worked out to be quite an adaptable dog. So
She seems like such a good girl too. When you see her on your videos, oh, she's so cute. If you guys
she
haven't
does.
seen Sadie, you guys gotta go and watch some Sadie videos on Anita's page because she seems like a real sweetheart.
She's beautiful, and if
She's
I
gorgeous.
she is a gorgeous dog, but
Mm, mm.
if she doesn't know you, you run, because she doesn't
Yeah.
take to new people at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, which I
Yeah,
guess you want, right? And
yeah,
then
and that's
do
the
you
breed.
still have Piper?
Yeah, so we've got Pip, the other farm dog. She's just fun. She doesn't have a specific job except chase balls and sticks. So
So she's like your pet dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
we adopted her about 7 years ago. So she was actually very good for when we first got Sadie, because
Uh-huh.
Maremas aren't very well known for their obedience.
Okay.
Um, they don't always come to their name. In fact, they usually don't come to their name. Thankfully, we got a Maremma that's a little bit food orientated, so I can get her
Oh.
to do what I want with food. But Pip is super obedient. So she's a Kelpie cross, and she is just, you say one word and she's just fantastic. So wherever she goes, Sadie wants to follow as well. So she was really instrumental when we were training Sadie. If if the gate was accidentally open and Sadie took off, Pip
Yeah.
was really good. If I'd call her and she'd come back, and then Sadie would follow. So
Yeah.
that is one recommendation I will say. If you're looking at Maremas, learn very well off other pack members. So if you've got another Maremma, the other Maremma usually does a lot in terms of training them, and any dog will help as well, because we use Pip with that, and it was really helpful.
Yeah. Well, we had what would have been an amazing dog to train an LGD with. We had an Australian Shepherd Collie named Max, and he was the sweetest, but
Oh,
he passed away last
oh,
summer. And he wasn't a farm dog. He, bless his heart, was just a lover. And so he wouldn't he wouldn't bark or, alert you to anything or, and
mm.
I mean, he was an inside house dog. We had him from when we were living in the city in North Carolina. And then so now the only dog we have is our little Chihuahua wiener dog, Lucy, and she's a good
Cute.
girl. But yeah. So I think I'm trying to determine what I'm going to do. So the lambs come in May, and I've had different feedback of, maybe you should like it. An overwhelming theme has been to get a puppy that you raise with the lambs, and then whatever, and then we're going to be breeding them, right? So it would be births on the homestead, right? So,
Yeah.
and just have them raise all together. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, look, I know that generally we never actually put Sadie with the chickens alone until she was at least 2, because a lot of the breeders were, and a lot of the resources that we watched on YouTube and stuff like that, they're puppies up until they're 2, and they do exhibit puppy behaviours. So they do have a natural um, that natural drive to guard and to protect. So whatever they're around, they bond to that. And I've had to be very careful with Sadie, because we do have sheep at the back of us. Our neighbour breeds them,
Mm-hmm.
and they've just had lambing season in July and August here, and she was very interested in them. And I kept an eye on her, because there's like this intuition, I think, with them, where they see the vulnerable lamb, because that's what they're best for, is guarding those animals while they're at their most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see her actually showing a lot of interest. I think she could smell the afterbirth and stuff like
Mm.
that, and that just kicked something in her. And yeah, so when that was happening, I actually had to go and do a bit of a perimeter check, because I was worried she might actually break through and try and go over to the
Mm.
sheep. Um, they're just naturally geared towards guarding that flock. And I know puppies, that they won't leave puppies alone unless they've got an older Maremma with it
Mm.
in the flock. So often you'll see like packs of Maremmas guarding, a big flock, a fairly large
Mm-hmm.
flock, and they'll have young puppies in with the older, more mature Maremmas. And the older Maremmas actually do a lot of the teaching,
Mm.
and keep those puppies in check, because like Sadie, even up until 6 months ago, every now and then I'd catch her chasing a chook, and I'd be like, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd check, but she'd check herself, but they do need a bit of guidance for the first 2 years. So even if you got a pup and started introducing them to, the flock and get them really used to that, they don't recommend that you leave them alone with the flock until they're at least sort of around the 2-year mark. But do some research, because there may actually be better livestock guardian breeds that suit your situation. There's quite a few different ones. There's also the Pyrenees ones that are close to Marinas. But, oh boy, they are worth their money. They're amazing, amazing creatures, what they do. And we've had, Sadie was worth every cent. She's been fantastic.
I think I have to, because we have absolutely every animal, like every single conceivable animal, we have it. So
yeah,
I think yeah.
they'd be
Cynthia
great.
says
Yep.
that the livestock guardian dogs will eat the placenta to keep the birth scent
they
down,
do.
so that predators won't come around. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
right.
I
And
have a placenta story for you guys. I'll laugh. So when we had calving season this spring, and one of our cows, Bunny, had not Bunny, Honey had a baby, Bunny, and so she had the placenta there, and so I delivered. She was like a difficult birth, so I had to deliver her, and everything went fine, and it was at nighttime, and I had to go to work the next morning, but Daniel was off, so no problem. And I'm like, because I went to bed, like I made sure that the calf was okay, she was nursing, whatever, and then I went to bed because it was late and I had to be up in a couple hours. Daniel's like, yeah, no problem. So I don't mean to throw him under the bus, he's gonna be so mad at me, but so like, yeah, you gotta take care of the placenta. Yep, all good. Okay. So then I come back home, so I'm gone all the next day because it's a long day, and I get home in the evening. And what happened? Our neighbor had come over, who lives on the one, like the property next to us, to see the calf, I think it was. And so Daniel took her down there, and then she had said that, so she has horses, and they had had a foal on the homestead the year before, and she said, well, in horses, I don't know anything about horses, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know, but something about how the placenta with horses, I don't think they eat it, but do you know if they eat it, horses? That doesn't sound right to me. Anyway, she had something to say about this placenta. And so Daniel was like, well, that's interesting. So he leaves the placenta there. So I come home and I'm like, oh, so you were able to dispose of the placenta and stuff. He's like, oh no, it's down there. And it's like 8 o'clock at night and it's dark. And we have like wolves, coyotes, bears,
Oh
moose,
no.
like foxes.
Oh no.
We have everything. I'm like, you got to go down there and get that placenta right now. And he's like, all right, because I think he maybe said like, oh, okay, in the morning I'll get it. I'm like, no, now. Go get the placenta. I freaked out. And anyway, it was kind of funny. I was like, I can't believe I have to explain this to you. Why leaving a placenta out in like at the end of February, beginning of March in the dark night? Oh,
Yeah, you
Cynthia says
definitely need
horses
a
will eat the
maremma.
placenta. I was horrified. Anyway, so funny. Placenta story.
Well, my pigs ate their placentas. Is that normal? I don't know. I just thought
I think a lot of animals do. And so
yeah,
she had an opportunity if she was going to choose to or whatever. But what I didn't want to have happen is if she didn't,
no,
and she didn't, for it to just be sitting there. And
yeah,
so we had been down
another
there.
animal.
Yeah. So that was my thing, is like, it's nighttime now. There's a baby calf. I don't want somebody coming around smelling this thing. Yeah.
Well, if you have a maremma, you won't have any issues. I
We
can tell you
we
that
will
much.
not have placenta issues.
You won't have placenta issues, and you won't have coyote issues either.
No. And the dog will not be anemic.
No, definitely not. The only thing we have found is that I have seen some Marimas actually guard the baby so well that they won't even let the mother near the baby. So that is another thing, but that's just training.
Yeah.
That's just training, and that doesn't take long for that to kick in. But
Okay.
it's yeah, and often you might just have to be there for a little while and do introductions and maybe
Oh, I'm
introduce
sure.
the dog
Yeah.
gradually. But
Well,
oh my gosh,
and the
mm,
lambs are in with their mothers in the barn, like in the jugging areas and stuff. So they're like put away, locked up for the first few days anyway. So
yeah.
after that, when they came back out, then I yeah, I think that you definitely need to spend, well, of course, in knowing me, I would just spend all my time down there anyway.
Oh, you've got so many good animals going on there, Erin.
I'm
It's
so
awesome.
excited.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
great.
excited. It's always
Good.
fun spring and all the new, and I have zero experience with sheep. So speaking of being genuine, all the videos that are going to be coming after they come are going to be like me learning, and I'm sure people will be commenting on my videos saying that's not how it's done.
Doesn't matter though, because we're all learning with you as well, and everyone's experience is a little bit different. So
Yeah.
even if you know everything about a topic, you still pick up things. Like it's all a journey, you know?
Yeah. And most people are wanting to be helpful and are actually quite supportive. So it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that your story is fantastic. I love everything that you're doing, and I
Oh,
hope that you'll be able to do lots of workshops this year, and that some of
yeah,
these
me too.
projects you've been wanting to do, you'll actually be able to do.
Yeah, but look, in the meantime, I just be adaptable and go with the flow a bit and just see where it takes me. Be inventive, be creative.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just want to make sure that everybody has the chance to ask you any questions that they might have that we didn't catch in the chat or that have come up. I know some people have stepped off. It's getting late in a lot of the time zones here in North America. But if you have any questions, pop them up on the chat. I'm sure Anita
And I
would
just want
love
to
to
say
answer
thank
them.
you. Thank you to everyone for coming and happy Thanksgiving to
Yes.
those, because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving here in Australia. So I didn't realize it was that. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes. Oh, it's quite an ordeal. It's quite an
Yeah.
ordeal. And
I'm
then
seeing
Black
some of the
Friday with all
food.
the sales and stuff, it's quite a thing.
Oh, okay.
Do you,
Well,
you
the
don't know?
food
Do you know
looks
what Black
good.
Friday is?
We have Black Friday
Oh,
here.
okay.
That
Okay.
is something Australia has picked up on. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad about that, just before Christmas, that we get to
Yes.
have some bargains.
Yes. I always we've been doing some renovations and remodeling and stuff, and I've been getting all my lights um each year
Ah,
on Black Friday, and it makes a huge difference.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Idaho Garden Girls here says it's been a great visit, and people are
Well,
wishing each
thank
other a
you for
happy
coming.
Thanksgiving.
I know Idaho. I know her. That's good. Thank you for
Yes.
coming.
Yes. Sharon says, thank you, Anita, for your story. It's been great to attend a live chat. Thank you, Erin, for holding the chat. Thank you guys so much for coming. As Anita said, this is only made possible if people are interested in coming and listening. So thank
Thank
you.
you, Sharon. Thanks, Sharon.
Well, thank you, Anita,
Cynthia.
for coming. You've been a lovely guest, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you more. I think that you have
You
so many cool
too.
things going on.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to get to chat with you. And thank you to everyone for watching. You're all beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll say good night for now and good afternoon for all you
Mm.
folks in Australia, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Erin. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Anita. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
My pleasure. Bye.